Welcome to this edition of PADNET Presents. I'm your host, Derek J. Simpson, and our goal is to introduce guests that will inform, engage, and empower you by the stories that they tell. On this particular episode, we are pleased and pleasure to have with us Lissa. I always say Lisa, but Lissa Markwardt, who is a certified Martha Beck life and career coach. Did I get it all correct?
You got it all correct, Derek.
All right,
Absolutely.
all right. Other than saying Lissa. So let's talk about that for a moment, because for years, I think those of us who worked with you when you were here called you Lissa, did we not?
Absolutely. And then when I moved to Idaho, I said, I'm going to finally step into the name that I was given as a child.
Right.
That's why I have two S's.
Right.
And when I went to kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher said, never heard of the name Lissa before. It must be Lisa. And I thought, well, she's a teacher. She should know.
You should know, right.
So then I became Lisa at school, and I was always Lissa at home. So the truth of the matter is, either one is absolutely fine with me. I've been called both my entire life, so I'm good.
It's interesting that we even have this particular conversation to start, because my name is Derek Simpson, D-A-R-I-C-K, and yet even the staff here say Derek. And everyone's always called me Derek, as in D-E-R-R-I-C-K.
Right.
So with all that said, and knowing that we're here today, I feel comfortable in speaking with you because we've worked together off and on over the years, for many years, from back in the days when you were with Long Beach Unified School District and doing things here in the city before you moved to Idaho. So talk a bit maybe about what you were doing before you made that transition here in terms of career counseling, et cetera.
Well, it's so interesting because when I was graduating from high school, I thought for sure I missed the day that they told you what you were supposed to do when you graduated. I thought for sure everybody else got the assignment, and I, was the only one in the entire world that didn't know what they were supposed to do, and I did not know how to figure it out. And then ironically, as my career developed, I ended up in education, and then when I moved from Arizona to California, I did not have a teaching credential here, so I decided to get a master's degree, and I decided to go into school counseling, and that landed me in a career center. So ironically, I was on the other side of the table with the other kids that had no clue how to figure out what it is that they're supposed to do. So I was really fortunate to be able to do that with Long Beach Unified for about 26 years. And so it became so apparent to me the importance of allowing individuals to explore what it is that lights them up, that excites them, that what their talents are, what their gifts are. And to be able to do that in a brief counseling session is very tough to do. So that's how I ended up moving more into career and life coaching and being able to spend some more time really exploring that with, first of all, I was with students, and now I'm doing it with adults, and it's fun.
And I'd like to, we're going to talk in a moment more about how you actually give more time to that as opposed to maybe an hour or less with a student, one of maybe hundreds that you had to see in any given year. I know that you are a mom and now have a grand baby as I do as well, and you're widowed, and I read on your website, and I mentioned before we came on, that you made a comment that fun guy I married was getting more and more difficult to find when you talked about your relationship with your husband, and there was a particular reason for that. But then you went on to say he didn't know that he wasn't going to get to do all the things he planned to do by the age of 55 because he passed. Can you tell that story for us?
Absolutely. Well, my husband and I were really good friends for 5 years before we got married, and we played and had the time of our lives. And I always say that I could never finish a tennis match with him because he would make me laugh so hard I'd end up doubled up on the ground. And then somehow our relationship evolved to the point where we got married, and all of a sudden he became the provider, which I believe most men will do in that situation. And the job that he had that he was kind of playful about and enjoyed, it was customer relations, it was fixing things. All of a sudden, he didn't feel like that was enough. And he asked for a promotion. He asked for, to be able to make more money. We ended up having kids. He didn't love what he was doing, but he kept getting more opportunities to make more money and have a bigger territory. He was in sales. And so as the years went on, he liked it less and less, and it really became more about the paycheck. And he would come home, and he wasn't fun to play with anymore. He really was all caught up in the stresses of the job and the pressure that he had. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't taking any time to really enjoy me or the kids. And so I would say to him, I go, Garrett, when are you going to take some time for you, for me, for the kids? And he would always say, don't worry, I'm going to retire at 55, and then we can do all the things I ever dreamed of. And in the meantime, I think what happens, and I've just become acutely aware of it when I coach clients or see my friends in a similar situation, where I think what happens is when men become the provider and they become so serious and they don't really love what they're doing, they're not passionate about what they're doing, then they kind of disconnect, and the wives go, well, I'll just go play with my girlfriends because they're going to be fun with me, and they'll do some of the things that I want to do. And so then the wives get involved in more of the things with their friends, and the husbands are spending more time being absorbed in the what's going on in work, and they do get that disconnect. And so it ultimately plays its role on the relationships.
I would imagine the beginning of the demise of the relationship if
Yes.
you're finding that consolation or that peace or that enjoyment somewhere other than at home.
Exactly. And then I think, as with my husband's case, he started developing physical symptoms where all of a sudden he had acid reflux disease. And then, down the road he got Epstein-Barr, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. And ultimately, after 9 years of that stress, he developed a brain tumor. And so I am very passionate about the fact that I believe that when you are not happy doing what you're doing and you have to go to work every day with that thought of, I have to go to work, I need to, do this, or, you're involved in things that you really don't enjoy doing, it creates a tension in your body that can definitely shut down the systems that we have that are designed to keep us healthy and well and feeling good.
Wow. Now, you talked about the fact that losing Gary taught you how to really live your own life. How did that happen?
Well, I realized that with Gary's constantly, telling me that don't worry, everything's going to be okay. We're going to do everything we really want to do at 55, and he passed away at 44. I realized that, nobody knows how much time they get. And that was a big wake-up call for me, and how I raised my children, in that I just said, we can't put it off. We can't always say someday we'll do that, because years go by, decades go by, and someday doesn't come. So I really live my life now in the moment. If there's something I really want to do, I come up with a way to do it, or something very close to that. But it's totally changed how I live my life.
I think that's sometimes I say that, I try to be more in the moment, especially after, being diagnosed with cancer last year, and then, you and I hadn't talked for a while. Once you heard about it, we reconnected, and you started to give me insight that was very helpful. And so now you're in Sandpoint, Idaho.
Part-time, yes.
Part-time,
Yes.
and here in California as well, and became a certified Martha Beck life and career coach. What made you get that certification, and why that path?
Well, it's interesting because even when I was working with high school kids, and then when I started coaching adults, I noticed that people would get to the point where they would either discover what it was that they really wanted to do career-wise or in their relationships, or how they're spending their leisure time, and then they would be afraid to step into it because they would go back to the familiar. It's just easier to not change is a lot of the mentality that goes on out there. And so I said to myself, how do I get my clients to step up to what it is that they really and truly want to do without slipping back into the same patterns and the same habits? And so I was sitting at work one night, it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I knew I'd be retiring soon. I go, I wonder if Martha Beck has this certification program. And went online, and sure enough, she did. There was one space available, and it started the next day.
Oh, wow.
Which is, it's unbelievably remarkable because normally her programs are sold out well in advance, and the chances of getting in, within a year or something is pretty amazing. So I guess it was just meant to be.
Now, we only have a few minutes before a break, but I want to talk about the fact real quickly, you do one-on-one counseling and then you have group counseling. What, in a snapshot, would you say would be the benefits of either or?
Good question. The one-on-one is really when someone feels the need to move forward with something personally in their life. I believe that we are changing constantly in our lives, and sometimes the things that we are looking to change the most, like again, it could be our career, it could be a relationship that we want to get out of, or we're longing to get into, or we all of a sudden have this free time and we're sitting in front of the TV and we're not really doing anything. We all have situations in our life that are asking to be changed. And so that's for that person one-to-one. Group is really helpful in a work environment where, just like when you do StrengthsFinder or anything like that, it's understanding, that we all have similar goals and intentions, and to just kind of be aware of what it is that, lights up that person or motivates them is so helpful in the workplace or any other kind of groups for that matter.
Well, those are interesting perspectives that you've shared, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you have a particular approach that you take, whether it be from a individual or group scenario, and I'd like for you to share more about that. We're on this particular episode of PADNET Presents with Lissa Markwardt, a certified life and career coach, and I'm sure that she's sharing information that will be helpful to you. And when we return, we'll talk about her approach as a life coach.
They have offered me opportunities. They allow me to utilize equipment that they have. I get to practice more so than I would with the supplies that I have, with the equipment that I have.
I'm learning how to work again with more people and how to actually work in the actual studio and working with the cameras and hands-on.
I remember they said like LAMP as in leadership. I learned a little bit about how to become a leader, as well as communicating with the people I work around with.
After being here, all the teaching, all the skills I've been learning, it became easy. It's like learning the alphabet. And from we start from the bottom and then we go up. We start learning all these new skills. Things that we thought that it was, really hard becomes easy.
Welcome back to PADNET Presents. I'm your host, Derek J. Simpson, Executive Director of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership and here at PADNET. And on this particular show, we have joining us Lissa Markwardt, who is a certified life and career coach. And before we left, we were talking about all that she does in that capacity. But in the break, we were talking about revisiting the fact that you didn't know quite how to make decisions as a high school student coming out of high school. I know I didn't. I didn't decide what I wanted to major in until my junior year of college,
Right.
which was television and film. And I only worked there 4 years, and the rest of my career has been everywhere else. But you had an interesting thought about that whole dynamic of parent expectations.
Right. Well, I wholeheartedly believe that we have a unique combination of gifts and talents and fascinations that we are the only one that has it, and that there's something that we're here to do in our own unique way. And I think we have that from a very young age, and it can evolve throughout our lives so that we're really clear on what it is. But what happens is when we start going to school, all of a sudden we get placed in an environment where we get compared to others on how well we do math or how well we do science or how good of an athlete we are. And all of a sudden we start judging ourselves. Others judge us, our parents judge us, teachers. And so all of a sudden we get uncomfortable if we're not good at everything. And we kind of forget what it is that we are just naturally and innately good at. It gets watered down because we're trying so hard to be good at everything, because it doesn't feel good to not compare well with others. But you know what? I believe that it's okay. We don't have to be great at everything, but if we allow our children to grow in what it is that they're innately drawn to, what what they are just naturally good at, and let that grow, maybe some of that other stuff is not so important. And then we don't have all these kids that are graduating from high school or living their entire lives doing careers that they have no idea what they would like to do, because they're so busy trying to live up to everybody else's expectations, and it's extremely confusing. So that is a big part of what I help my clients do. So I think it's important to notice that.
It's very important. I joke with people that my daughter spent $40,000 trying to figure out that she didn't want to be a doctor. And then
so true.
Right,
Yes.
and only because she thought that her parents wanted her to be that. And I think many times students take on the expectations of others as opposed to following their own heart and their own path. So I wholeheartedly agree.
And I just want to say that the majority of the clients that come to me in their mid-20s, they show up in tears, because they have never had the opportunity to figure it out on their own, and they've gone down a career path that does not feel good to them, and they've invested so much of themselves and their parents' money, and they feel so lost and confused because they don't know how to figure it out. But it is very, it's a hard time for kids in their mid-20s when they get that reality.
So let's talk about now the approach. I know that in your capacity as a life and career coach, there is a particular approach that you like to utilize as you're working with your clients, if I were to call them that. Right. Can you share briefly what that 4-step approach might be?
Yes, definitely. Basically, what happens to kind of kick us into change, because we are just naturally we avoid change because there is a little bit of discomfort in it, because things are not going to be the same as they were, and sometimes even uncomfortable can be a place that people will stay, as opposed to going down a road where they don't know exactly where they're going to end up. So they will stay with the familiar. So as a Martha Beck coach, we all call it a catalytic change. It could be just because we've outgrown something. It could be friendships or career or a relationship, whatever. And that it becomes so uncomfortable that we say, okay, something has to happen here. I have to end the marriage, or I have to change my career, or something, or I have to move, whatever. And so that catalytic event that happens throws you into the state of a loss of identity. It's like, wait a minute, I've been Bob's wife all these years, or I have been the executive director of whatever all these years, and it's all of a sudden, you don't know who you are anymore. It's a letting go of that identity. And when you don't have that identity anymore, it's uncomfortable because you don't really know who you're going to be down the road. So it's a very awkward and an uncomfortable time, and that is the most difficult part of change, and that's the part that most people are trying to avoid. So to get through that stage, it's really a matter of just taking good care of yourself and taking some time to just relax and if you feel like crying, to cry, to write about things, but to just really slow down and just kind of realize it's just the beginning of the change process. And it's completely normal to not feel super great at that very beginning part of change.
And when you talk about redefining the possibilities, is that where you go more into letting go, but then saying, well, this is how I look forward then?
Yeah, well, all of a sudden it's like, after you kind of go through that loss of identity, that kind of, it's a grieving state actually. It's like, all of a sudden there'll just be this little glimmer of like, wait a minute, now I get to start, the possibility of a relationship with a man who wants to travel with me, or I can have a career where I can actually use my creative skills, or or maybe I could actually lose that 35 pounds if I start doing some hiking. I mean, it's just, all of a sudden it's that letting go of that who I used to be and looking at real possibilities of the bazillion opportunities that we have out there, and getting it and realizing that there really is an exciting opportunity that's waiting for us.
And you mentioned moving forward with inspired action. So we've let go of what was, we've redefined possibilities. How do we move forward with inspired action?
Well, it's all of a sudden, you start playing with all these possibilities, and then something will stick where you go like, ooh, that's it. And sometimes people already, the majority of my clients already kind of know what that is. They just need a little bit more to throw into the mix to get clear on it. But then all of a sudden, it's like, well, now I want to do something about this. What's the next step that I can take so I can move into this? And it could be just little turtle steps, but whenever there's that inspiration to take action, it's a good sign that that's moving in the right direction.
And then finally you say plan for enhanced change. And when I read that, I thought about in a book I wrote in a poem, Are You Ready? Because we say what we want, but it's like, be careful what you ask for,
right? Because
you just might get it. And are you ready for that? And when you talk about planning for enhanced change, what do you say to your clients in that regard?
Well, so going through change, like I said, it can be really difficult. It's really exciting, but it can be difficult. And so usually by the time we really get to where we wanted to be, we don't even realize where we've come from. And so it's almost like we don't even take the time to celebrate all the changes that we've gone through to get there, all the work that we have done. And so then the next thing we start getting into those patterns of something little might be not quite exactly what we had in mind along the way, and we just let it go. And so by planning for enhanced change, it's just noticing that, maybe if I asked my boss if I could incorporate a little bit more of this aspect of my job that I really love, it could keep me in this career, but growing in a way that feels really good to me.
Now we're running out of time so quickly. We only have a few minutes left. I want to ask you some quick questions.
Sure.
You give me some quick answers so we can cover a lot of ground
Okay.
here. I know that you would like to work holistically with doctors to sort of augment what they're doing medically with what you do. How would you envision that happening?
And this is maybe something that you can speak to too, is that I wholeheartedly believe, because of the fact that my husband got sick and I've seen it happen repeatedly, that there are ailments and illnesses that we get because of this, I need to do something that I don't love, and it's uncomfortable. And I really think that if doctors would start looking at what's going on in their patients' lives as opposed to just looking at symptoms, that there are a lot of things that could be diverted by people being true to who they really are and not living till they're 44 years old or however old with that discomfort in the physical problems in their body that they're getting because of that.
And I know you asked me a question that I repeat over and over again to this day. When you heard me talk after I had come back to work, and you asked me, Derek, what is that paycheck costing you? And I had to ask myself, what is it costing me? When you talk about life and knowing life and death is such a clear line when you're facing it.
Yes.
What do you say to men and when you know that I was that guy, oh, I will be fine, oh, it's nothing. What do you say to those types of people that, just have that wall up?
You know, it's so interesting because when I first start talking to most men, just casually, they will say that they enjoy what they do. And by the time I get done having a conversation with them, they pretty much tell me that, no, I really hate what I'm doing.
Right.
And I do. That is my question. What is that paycheck costing you? I mean, so you cannot go out and buy how wonderful it feels to do what you're meant to do. So we think that the amount of money we make and the job title is what's most important, when it's really how you feel about what you do that can allow you to live a healthier life. You can have better relationships, and you can also make the world a better place because you're doing what you're supposed to do.
We have a minute.
Okay.
What's most gratifying about your job now and what you do?
You know, every time I see someone step into what it is that they're here to do, and I see the passion, the excitement, and the gifts they give the world, and that they have let go of the importance of what everybody else thinks it is that they're supposed to be doing, and totally stepping into what they know it is that they're here to do.
So as we begin to wrap up then, whether it be one-on-one or whether it's a group, there is that other life that many people don't realize that they have to live. And by working with you as a certified life and career coach, on the beginning of that journey, you can help them sort of understand the path that they should take career-wise, and maybe throughout that journey, it's sort of holding their hand to some degree, or pointing them in the right direction, because they ultimately choose that direction to live the most full life that they can possibly live.
Yes.
You're amazing. You've always been amazing.
Thank
I know
you.
the work that you do is amazing. You certainly helped me on my journey, and that's why it was important for me to share this story on this edition of PADNET Presents. As always, we've enjoyed our guest, and in this particular episode, it was Lissa Markwardt, who is indeed a fabulous certified life and career coach that at some point along the way, we all have to admit that we don't know it all, and it's okay to reach out to someone to help us find our way. Thank you again for joining us on PADNET Presents. I'm your host, Derek Simpson, Executive Director here at Long Beach Community Action Partnership and of PADNET, and we hope that you've enjoyed this program and will return again for our next guest. Have a wonderful day.